Hello, and welcome back to another fun-filled episode of the Hammercast. I'm your host, Alex, the Hebrew Hammer Salkin, and today I want to talk a little bit about how to turn your question mark physique into an exclamation point. You know exactly what I mean. You sit around all day, you're slouched over, and eventually it starts to have an impact on your posture in general. And of course, that is going to affect your lifting. It's going to affect your exercise. It could even affect your confidence because if you don't stand upright, you look like you're constantly, in this state of fright, and it'll have a negative impact overall on how you feel about yourself, how you feel physically, and so on and so forth. So we're going to go into a little bit of detail on that. But before I do that, I want to make mention, of course, as always, if you haven't already, you should definitely get my 9-minute kettlebell and bodyweight challenge. As the name implies, it's only 9 minutes long, and it is a collection of a couple of gait pattern movements that actually work very well as well to improve your posture. Very simple to learn, easy to do, and you will almost certainly feel a pretty nifty impact very shortly. And probably the best part about it is that it can be done in addition to what you are currently doing, so you don't have to put your training aside in order to implement it. It's all ready to rock and roll for you. So go to 9minutechallenge.com. You can get your own free copy, and there you have it. There you be. So as I was saying, I want to talk a little bit about posture and particularly how you can turn yours into more of an exclamation point and less of a question mark. You can tell a lot about a person from a distance. Now, as I mentioned earlier, if you are hunched over, you're going to look like somebody who's sort of frail, not very strong, not very confident. Is that what you're telegraphing? You're going to telegraph to people from afar that you're strong, confident, and capable, or that you're demure, frail, and easy to push around? Now, it's hard to imagine a single scenario in which the latter option is preferable, whether it's in business, first impressions, or physical fitness. Well, maybe if you find yourself on the wrong side of town and you have to back down from a big troublemaking dude so you can keep all your teeth, then it might be useful. But then again, maybe if you looked more confident, you would have kept on walking and you'd still have your pride. So whatever the situation is, proper posture is a must. And despite common misconceptions, your posture is both static and dynamic. It changes position based on the situation you find yourself in. So a lot of people think, for instance, that posture is like a position you hold, like your mom tells you to stand up straight or sit up straight. It's not quite how it works. Again, it's both static and dynamic. So in other words, it's not a pose that you hold to please your mom so she doesn't think that you look like a slouch. And it's not something that you can train with one of those, let's say, posture correcting late night infomercial products. I don't know if you've seen them. I certainly have. So the question is, how do you turn that Quasimodo looking question mark frame of yours into an exclamation point that you can be proud of? It's simple. And as I alluded to earlier, if you start moving the way that you were made, starting with the ground, you can start making improvements in your posture. All right. And, I'm going to give you a couple of pointers here, because before we get to the solution, you have to understand what the nature of the problem is. So for instance, there are three things that conspire against you. And one of them is gravity. Another one of them is your age. And then the third one is modern sedentary life. So gravity, I would say, is a big contributor because, it's constantly pulling on you and it's pulling you down. And the age, because as you get older, certain muscles get tighter and other muscles get looser. So for instance, Czech physiologist Vladimir Janda identified them as tonic and phasic muscles. So tonic muscles tend to get tighter. So these are muscles like, let's say, your pec minor, your biceps, your hip flexors, all these things that kind of pull you into this forward hunched position. But modern sedentary life, last and definitely not least, because when you're sitting for long periods of time, as many of us do, it dulls your reflexes, and your posture is a reflex. So on top of all this, your workout might be adding to your troubles by focusing on developing these muscles that are already getting tight as you get older, like I mentioned earlier, biceps, your chest, etc. Now, to fight gravity, you must get stronger from head to toe. To fight the ravages of age, you must move like you did in your youth. And to fight a sedentary lifestyle, you must move more frequently. You must also work within the time constraints you already have. So when you have to get a lot of work done in a short amount of time, maybe a minute or two at a clip, you really can't fool around with BS exercises and pointless doodads and gadgets and other routines that are just going to take up a lot of time just to get ready to do the routine. So one of the things that I really like is rocking. Number one, you're literally made to do it. And what's very interesting about rocking is that it is the keystone that sets your posture when you're a baby. And so you see little babies when they get up on all fours finally, and one of the things they'll do is they'll start to rock back and forth, and then later they'll start to crawl as well. And rocking is what sets the S curve in your spine. So that's what gives you the ability to walk upright. It's what sets our posture to begin with, and it can help us to restore it as well. So doing it is really pretty straightforward. You get on your hands and your knees, and you keep your eyes facing forward to the best of your ability. Don't look down at the ground if you can help it. Then you're going to rock backward slowly toward your hips and then forward onto your hands. You want to stay relaxed and just kind of notice when muscles start to turn on a bit as you move. So you repeat this for 2 to 3 minutes. You can go for 5 if you want, but again, just keep your head up. Make sure your knees are padded too. I would highly recommend that, because one issue if you're doing this on a hard floor and your knees are bugging you, it's very hard to relax. So it's gonna have a big impact. Now, one other thing that I'll say is that I would recommend that you only rock back as far as you can while maintaining the natural curves of your spine. Odds are you're going to reach a point where your tailbone is going to tuck under. It's not dangerous or anything like that, but it's also not the best way to rock. Okay. There's going to be a video in the description so that you can look at some of the recommendations that I have for rocking. So if you're curious, you've never tried this before and you want to see a demo, there is a video in the description for you. I would highly recommend that you add it to your regular morning routine. You don't have to do any special prep for it. You can do it while you're waiting for your coffee to finish dripping or before you hit the shower. You can do it in your cubicle when you need an afternoon movement pick-me-up. The other thing too is that you can always just say you lost a contact lens if anybody catches you. If you point out that you wear glasses, you can just come up with some other lie. Whatever it takes, try to get it in. Basically, you can do it anytime and anywhere. You really only need a little bit of floor space and maybe a minute or less. It's really not going to take too long. Now, one of the things when I tell people to rock more often, they kind of like bristle at the idea for a variety of reasons. And one of the things I'll ultimately say is, okay, well, how can this really be all that helpful? So one of my former students, Senya, really swears by rocking. So many years ago when I started training with her, she told me this story. She was in a car accident and she had all sorts of issues with her hips and back and stuff like that. And once she started rocking regularly, her hips, her posture, and her sanity really, it took a huge improvement. So rocking back and forth is also very emotionally soothing. You'll probably feel a lot calmer when you're done. She definitely did. And probably the coolest story that she had was that she got a call from her chiropractor, whom she used to see weekly. And it had been 12 weeks since she had seen her. And the chiropractor asked, "Hey, is everything okay? I haven't seen you in like 3 months." And she said, "Yeah, I've just been great. I really don't need, don't need to come in." And she credits a lot of it to rocking. Now she was doing other stuff too. For instance, she was doing some other original strength resets and some other body weight movements that I had her do. But the big one for her, she said, was rocking. Whenever her hips or back started acting up, she would get on all fours, and she would rock, and she felt awesome. The other thing too is, by the way, is that it's not just for, let's say, postural correction, but I use rocking to help improve my military press. I've done the same thing with a lot of my students. Part of the reason that it's helpful is because on the one hand, you're getting out of your own way by helping to improve your posture. If you've ever tried to press while you're kind of hunched over, it's bad news in the shoulders, and it's just not going to go performance wise. But I've had a lot of people do rocking before they press. In addition to that benefit, it also helps them to fire up the pressing muscles. It gets their shoulder blades moving in tandem with the arm, which is huge for the military press. So just endless possibilities to use rocking, and endless benefits for it as well. So big thing to keep in mind is that simple movements have complex outcomes. And if you do this every day for a month and you don't feel better, look more confident, lift easier, well, I'll just eat my sweaty gym socks. How about that? All right. So Hope you've enjoyed this podcast. I'm going to remind you once again, if you have not already, you should get my 9-minute kettlebell and bodyweight challenge. Uh, if posture is one of the things on your list and you want to be able to move a little bit more like you did when you were younger, this is going to help you do that. And again, you can do it in conjunction with whatever else you are doing. Uh, Feel free to go to 9minutechallenge.com, snag yourself a copy, and enjoy. And as always, have fun and happy training.